Alok, you are live on Talk Heathen.
There's
Hey,
Alok.
how's it going?
Yeah, so I was telling the screener that this is the only issue where we say that it's a binary choice, kind of like if you either believe or don't believe in God, so you're an atheist or a theist. And sometimes we say you believe that there's not a God or you don't believe that there is a God. But I don't know why we do not consider a spectrum of confidence. Like, I don't know if I'm 100% confident if the Big Bang caused the universe. I may not be 100% confident if maybe I'm 100% pro-choice or maybe 2% anti-choice, stuff like that. So every time Matt and all you guys say you're either convinced or not convinced there is a God, it does not gel with me, because in most of the things I do in my life, there's always a spectrum of uncertainty and confidence. So I don't know why it can't be somewhere in the middle, that yes, I'm maybe 95% sure that there's no God, and we never talk about that spectrum of uncertainty or lack of confidence.
I mean, maybe other hosts don't. I feel like I certainly have. I mean, like Richard Dawkins, for example, made a whole scale of the belief scale, a scale of 1 to 7, on how strong a belief or disbelief in a God is, right? Like, so other people have talked about this, and of course, the classic label for this is agnostic, right? If you're not sure. Now, of course, in the atheist community, that label can be a bit different. A lot of us identify as agnostic atheists, because while we may not be sure that there isn't a God, we still live our lives as if there isn't. So like, I mean, that spectrum is there. I'm sorry, maybe you haven't heard it from other content creators and people who talk about this, but yeah, there's definitely a spectrum, and a lot of people are in the middle. The problem, of course, is people who are kind of wishy-washy or in the middle are not necessarily, let's say, contributing to political problems such as Christian nationalism, or perhaps lobbying against lobbying for laws that discriminate against LGBT people, for example, right? Like, maybe some of them are, but the ones who are the most dedicated and hardcore in their beliefs are the ones that tend to cause, the most problems. And so that's why we tend to focus on that. But of course, there is a big spectrum. I, of course, existed in the middle of that spectrum at some point. I'm sure Johnny did too, and a lot of us did on our journeys. It's easy for us to forget about it though, because we're kind of, already on the other side. I mean, what do you think about this, Johnny?
Let me unmute myself. I noticed something that you said there, Alok, is that either we're convinced that a God exists, or we believe that a God exists, or we believe that a God doesn't exist. Is that how you framed the question right there?
No, I've seen Matt fielding these questions many times, and people say, why is there nothing in the middle? And he says that, forget him. And people say that you're either convinced or not convinced that there's a God. Let's forget Gnosticism for a second, because that's knowledge. Right. I'm only talking about belief. Yeah. So let's not talk about agnostic atheists. No, let's just talk about atheists versus theists. So sometimes I hear that you're either convinced or not convinced. And I thought about it a lot. I've been an atheist for 10 years, thanks to your shows. And I thought I'm never like that on most of the things in my life. I'm never convinced or unconvinced. I'm either 90% confident, I'm convinced, or 80% confident. So if I'm 90% confident, like your other host was saying, like Darwin's scale, what should I call myself? Should I call myself a 90% atheist? Because I don't want to bring Gnosticism into it. I'm just talking about the belief.
Yeah, I get you, Alok. I think that the label isn't quite as important as all of that. I mean, if it helps you with an identity, if it helps you when you're staking out a claim in the rhetorical landscape, if you want, you could do that. But to me, unless you can affirmatively say you have a belief, I have a belief, I believe that something is so, you lack that belief. Now, I don't believe that God exists. That it makes, like you said, no claim as to whether God actually exists. I am fully open to the idea that God does exist, and I'm just unaware, or I don't have enough information, or whatever it might be, or I'm somehow rejecting it because I want to sin. I'm doing a really crappy job of that, I think. But anyway, but
yeah, no, I think I agree with you. The convinced or not convinced, I think, is not really realistic.
I am not convinced that Yahweh exists. I'm not convinced that Vishnu exists, or fucking Thor. But that doesn't mean that fucking Thor or Frigga or Volstagg the enormous doesn't exist. I'm just not convinced of it. Am I 100,000% that Hogan the Grim does not exist? No, I'm just not convinced that Hogan the Grim does exist. And so I am functionally an atheist. But again, you can slice it really thin if you want to and say that you're 99.9% have your 99.9% lack of belief. I guess you can, but it doesn't really matter, Alok. It's not that important to have the conversation about why people believe. Why do you believe? What are your reasons for believing that Odin exists? Okay, my tittering over Hogan the Grim notwithstanding. Like, you believe that the Norse gods exist. Cool. I don't. Now let's talk about why. That's much more important. And honestly, for me, okay, it's not even why you believe in that stuff. It's what follows from that. What follows from that belief about the universe is a much more interesting question. How are you supposed to behave if you believe that the Norse gods exist, or Yahweh exists, or don't exist? How are you going to make an impression upon the world? What kind of a world should we all be living in? To me, that's much more important. I have friends, I've mentioned this before, who believe in an array of what I think are ridiculous propositions. And yet some of them are awesome, and some of them I think their behavior is kind of terrible in some regards, but it's offset by other awesomeness that they have. So is there a reason, not to derail this, but is there a reason why is it just because it's just sort of buzzing around in your head? You really want to know why we don't talk about it? Or is there a reason why it's so important for you to distinguish that you're a 90% atheist and a 10% theist? Can you help us out with that one?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. And sorry, Dan, I forgot your name a second back. Yeah, I agree. Semantics are useless. They don't help us. And I've just seen theists and some philosophers also disagree with this convinced, unconvinced thing. And I watched many shows around this ecosystem, and the true definition in philosophy is different. And so that was my only thing, that let's not make it so binary and push away people who are somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. That was my only concern. For me, I think, I don't know how to put a number on it. It might be 95. I don't know what the thing is. Maybe there's some asshole somewhere on Jupiter who's a god. I don't care. But as far as I can see, there's no evidence. I'm a believer of science, so I don't think, I don't think it is that important. I just want to give some advice to your show. And if I can, cheat for 2 minutes, can I bring up a small topic?
Well, before you bring up your small topic, Alok, I will say that as far as that's concerned, what you just described, I don't think we should be alienating people who may not identify as hardcore anti-theist god killers, right? Because I don't really care. A lot of those people can be pretty obnoxious, quite honestly. But I'm more interested in the general secular community letting us know that we have numbers. There are a lot of us. We care. A lot of us are very good people. And there's very good people on both sides of this issue. And so, yes, to the extent that we are trashing people who aren't willing to say that they believe that no gods exist, sure, let's not do that. Let's be cool. Let's find our friends in any community we can that isn't antithetical to our core beliefs, which is, I think, ultimately humanism. I'm with you on that one, but I don't think that the label is as important as all that, because I've gone down that label path myself with friends and had fights, and I'm like, you know what? Why do I even care? They can call themselves, anything they want, as long as we're working toward the same goals and they aren't working against some of my key ones. Fine, let them worship the sun if they want to. In some benign way. But what was the little point you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I agree. When you talk to people, there are a million definitions of God, so I don't even know which God they're talking about. So how can I not believe in it? But the small topic was, I was thinking, why don't we spread the word and preach and go door to door And proselytize might be a bad word. I don't think it's a proprietary thing of religion to spread the word. So I've seen many shows in which we say, no, we don't do what Christians do or Muslims or Hindus do, but we don't go out and spread the word. So just want to piggyback on the recent abortion and Roe versus Wade thing on this spreading the word. I think all of these pro-choice people who might even be religious, if we use atheism to spread that, to spearhead that movement and say that this nonsense is happening because of religious dogma, there is no science behind it, there's no medical science behind it. It is purely 2,000-year-old crap coming from some book which some people wrote. I think we can exploit this opportunity to tell those people, whether we are pro-choice or not, that the root cause of this is religion and all the toxic effects of religion, any of the Supreme Court decisions. So I think we can perfectly exploit this opportunity. I'm not using exploit as a pejorative. I'm just using it as every movement needs some kind of kickstarter or a boost. So we can use this opportunity to tell the people who support us that the root cause of this nonsense, maybe it's politics too, but it's also religious dogma and lack of rationality and logic with this kind of thinking.
I agree.
Yeah.
The biggest reason why Christianity and Islam are two of the biggest religions on earth is because of colonialism. It's because that they have used state-induced powers to spread the word, and they've used violence backed by the state to control populations that did not believe, and have eventually forced people to conform with that belief system. And now that you can't do that as much these days, what do people do? Well, they go door to door. Like that's the extent of how you do that mission work, right? Or you help nations in need in other countries by providing them resources exclusively through like church practices and stuff. And so you create a dependency on a religious system and stuff. There's lots of different ways that people are trying to exploit that. Like as a community, we don't want to exploit other people. We don't want people to come to atheism or any other kind of secularist ideas because we are exploiting their needs. And I would never want to do that. But I do agree with you that, of course, you have to have some motivation for action. You have to have some sort of practice in doing something. I would call myself an activist because I do shows like this one where I talk about these issues both online and offline. And I think I'm doing the most effective work that I can. And I encourage other people to do that. So am I going door to door and talking about these issues? No, because quite frankly, I don't think that that's as effective as it could be. I mean, obviously, there's a reason why political campaigns and stuff do that, because they do convince some people. But it's more annoying than anything. And quite frankly, I don't have the time for that. I got a regular 9 to 5. But yeah,
Dan, I disagree with you that you can't use the power of the state and the violence of the state to enforce your religious beliefs. You can, and they are right now.
No. I never said that you can't. I'm saying I don't want to do that.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that's not as...
No. It's still happening. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the history of this. I'm talking about America in particular, right? Like, why are we a Christian nation? Part of it's because of colonialism. Part of it is because of the forceful taking of people of lands and telling people that they have to be thinking ways that we do, right? Like I think that's point's obvious. I'm saying that we as atheists, we don't have a means to do that currently. There's no secular powers that are doing that, and even if we could, that's not the way we should do it. We have to do it through other means that are they less impactful? Are they less dramatic? Sure, but they're more ethical, right? I'd rather do it in the ways that we do it now than state-backed violence. I don't know. That was my point there. Not saying that doesn't happen. Or that.
Because we're seeing it in the news. I don't know if you noticed. Yeah, you do notice.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I would not institute a policy that violates human rights because I think that even if it's against a religious belief, or doesn't, you know what I'm trying to say? It's a whole thing.
Alok, you suggest pointing out, highlighting the connection between these religious beliefs, this magical thinking, and the ripping away of rights and freedoms that we're seeing right now in this country is a good idea. Well, shoot, we do it all the time. I'm doing it in my personal conversations. We talk about it on this show all the time. And we certainly talk about it on the nonprofits. We talk about it every goddamn week. And because it keeps on happening, and we're going to keep on talking about it until it stops happening. But I think
the only time it came to my mind was when I was watching CNN and all these shows, and there are people from all kinds of philosophies, and I never saw any atheist come, like any atheist, you guys or Matt or Doug or Richard Dawkins or anyone come there and say, look guys, the root cause of this nonsense is that these religious dogmas have no basis. They are unscientific and all. If even 2 or 3 of you guys come there, I know there's a mainstream bias, I get that.
Listen,
I think it would
if
be
CNN wants to call me up, I'm down. I'll do it.
You make a good
knocking
point,
at my door, but I definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's not in the discourse right now. I mean, a little bit. Everyone's been sharing that video of the Young Turks. What's the name of that reporter? I don't care about your religion. I can never remember the name of that particular person. Chat's going to get it in 2 seconds. Thank you. Yes, that's it. That's really the gist of it. We hear about, how this is taking away people's rights, all that stuff. But the truth is, the root of it, it's religion. I think the reason why you're not seeing it in media is because religion is still very important to a lot of people. They don't want to lose sponsors. They don't want to lose support. And that's why they're not talking about it. Because atheists are still the black sheep.
When this was first being talked about, I must have watched like an hour of the news because I was at my parents' house and they watch TV news. I don't watch news on the TV, but like they had it on, and I don't think I heard religious reasons being cited like once, even by the pro-life organizations, because they want to have a veneer of scientific backing, of secular backing, of they don't want to have to cite religion as the source of it. But I think if you ask the average American, they're going to use religion as a talking point for, specifically on these Roe v. Wade issues and stuff. But hey, we do have to move on to some other callers. I want to thank you again, Alok, for calling in and talking to us about that topic. Let people live their lives. And if they have a label that doesn't quite match the way you describe something, unless you're in a philosophy class, like I don't, is it going to matter that much? I don't know. There's some people who have met who are very, very, shall we say, strict on the point of, no, you can't be an agnostic atheist because you have to blah, 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 blah. It's like, I really don't give a shit. I'll be honest. That's not my biggest thing I worry about.